Last week we had the part 2 of the topic trials of many kind, and we talked about how a believing Christian can actually go through dark times for a very long time and going through trials and tribulation for a long time, even when he's being faithful, living a godly life. And we looked at Job as an example from the scripture. We saw what he went through, how the devil decided to wage war on him because he was a lover of God, and on the other hand, because God boasted about him, God loved him. We saw all that he went through, all that transpired. And we also saw how we can actually relate this to ourselves as Christians today, and we shared perspective. Today we're going to continue with the part 3 of the same topic, trials of many kind. Today we're going to be looking at the grace of God in dark times. And we're still going to be using the same scripture, which is Psalm 88. My name is ernestunde, like you know, and you're welcome once again to my series titled The Christian Walk. It's a series that helps to share insight for a very productive Christian walk. Please don't go away. I'll be right back. Now, going through Psalm 88, practically saw the psalmist being very upset and venting his anger on God. Freely expressing how he felt on God. And it sounded very rude and disrespectful, to be honest. Verse 10, he said, Will you work wonders in the dead, for the dead? Shall the dead arise and praise you? Shall your loving kindness be declared in the grave, or your faithfulness in the place of destruction? Shall your wonders be known in the dark, and your righteousness in the land of forgiveness? Have you ever spoken to God in that manner before? Well, I think I have on a couple of occasions when I was going through some things. And I know a lot of us can relate. It's like a child throwing tantrums, at the mom or the dad because he's not having his way at something. And a lot of time, we know what happened, what we do to our kids, especially a typical African mother, African father. Serious discipline follows immediately. But God is a God of grace. He's a very gracious God. And he didn't react that way to the psalmist. He doesn't always react in that way. We even saw the psalmist exaggerating totally in some areas. Just like we do sometimes when we're having quarrels with each other, especially a couple. Couples do that a lot. Oh, you never do this for me. You never do that for me. And we saw him practically saying that all his life, all he has known from God was pain and affliction. That God has never been there for him. And you and I know that that is not true. He said from verse 15, I have been afflicted and ready to die from my youth. I suffered terrors, I am distraught. Your fierce wrath has gone over me. Your terror have cut me off. They came around me all day long like water. They engulfed me altogether. Loved ones and friends you have put far from me. Darkness is my only friend. It really was very rude here, to be honest. And you'll be forced to wonder, so why is God allowing this passage in the scripture? Well, I think God has a good reason. He always has a good purpose for everything. So that we know that he knows how we feel. He knows how we react when we're going through things. He made us. And so he can manage us. He understands us and I can accommodate those are expressions. Because he knows that we're going through pain. He created us. He's a God of grace and he can identify with us. We saw Job, like we said last week, going through some challenges. But we also saw him actually going through this trial, how he reacted to God. I actually think Job acted worse when he was going through his. Let me read Job 10 from 1 to the end. Say, I loathe my very life. Therefore, I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. I say to God, do not declare me guilty, but tell me what charges you have against me. Does it please you to oppress me, to spurn the work of your hands, while you smile on the plan of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh? Do you see as the mortal sees? Are your days like those of mortal, or your years like those of a strong man? That you must search out my faults and probe after my sin, though you know that I am not guilty, and that no one can rescue me from your hand. Your hand shaped me and made me. Will you now turn and destroy me? Remember that you molded me like clay. Will you now turn me to dust again? Did you not pour me out like milk and cuddle me like cheese? Clothe me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews? You gave me life and showed me kindness, and in your providence watched over my spirit. but this is what you concealed in your heart. And I know that this was in your mind. If I sin, you will be watching me and will not let my offense go unpunished. If I am guilty, woe to me. Even if I am innocent, I cannot lift my head, for I am full of shame and drowned in my affliction. If I hold my head high, you stalk me like a lion, and again display your awesome power against me. You bring me witnesses against me, and increase your anger towards me. Your forces come against me, waves upon waves. Why then did you bring me out of the womb? I wish I had died before any eye saw me, if only I had never come into being, or had been carried straight from the womb to the grave. Are not my few days almost over? Turn away from me so I can have a moment's joy before I go to the place of no return, to the land of gloom and utter darkness, to the land of deepest night, of utter darkness and disorder, where even the light is like darkness. Wow. I really think Job was way off here compared to the psalmist here. He practically accused God of being wicked and partial, and that God planned this evil right from the beginning just to set him up and deal with him ruthlessly. Like someone talking to his mates. And it really looked very disrespectful. But actually, I think God was actually enjoying all of Job's tantrum and complaining and all that, because he knew the end. He knew the good plan he had for Job and how everything would turn out. He knew that wasn't going to kill him, wasn't going to die in the process. But because Job was human, he didn't know what plan God had. At least that what we could see was not good. So he was only reacting out of pain. And because it was limited, and God can relate with us. And I think God allowed it, for good reason. And I think just to tell us that, yeah, I'm your God, not because you're perfect, not because you always do the right thing, you always say the right thing, because you're always righteous. No, I'm your God because I love you, because I'm a gracious God, not because of your faithfulness, but because I love you. And to me, that is very, very, very liberating, to be honest. To know that God understands and He loves me, and He understands when I go through these things. And I believe that we learn a lot more during our times of trial, during our dark time, and during times of prosperity. God is not embarrassed by our tantrum, when we throw our tantrum and when we react, because He can handle it. He made us, and He can deal with us if we choose to. Just like when our kids do tantrum sometimes we get embarrassed. Out of embarrassment, we overreact, especially when it's in public. But God is not embarrassed. He knows us and He can manage us. He can deal with us when He needs to. But sometimes, out of our human nature, we overreact with our own kids. But God sees our heart. He knows exactly what we're going through. And He knows what we're trying to express at every point in time. And He wants us to be real with Him. He doesn't want us to pretend before Him. He's our Father. He wants to hear from us. He wants to hear from you. And I know a whole lot of us can relate to what I'm sharing. What is it you're going through right now? What are those trials, those tribulations, those challenges you're going through? Is it ill health? Is it financial challenge? Is it relational? What are those challenges that you're hiding, that you're keeping to yourself? God sees and He knows. And He wants you to pour out His heart to Him. He can handle it. He wants to know where you're at. He saw Adam in the garden, but He asked, where are you? God knows what we're going through. And so He wants us to be real with Him. Go ahead and speak to God. Pour out your heart to your loving Father. And so this is what I encourage you to do. Take some time, go to a quiet place. Go for a quiet place in your home, in your office, wherever it is. And just have some one-to-one, heart-to-heart talk with God. Tell Him how you feel. Tell Him what you're going through. And I tell you, you will feel better. And at the end, He will speak to you. You will hear from Him. He wants to hear from you because He loves you. Because He's a gracious God. He likes to relate with us. He wants us to always come to Him. I encourage you to do that. Next week, we're going to have the last part of this topic, trials of many kind. And we'll be talking about becoming a person of greatness in dark times. How we can become a person of greatness during those tribulations and very dark times. So please, I encourage you, make it a date with me next week for that final part of the topic Trials of Mankind. Until then, please stay blessed, stay safe.